Healing can feel never ending, right? It's like you open this Pandora box and the emotion just keep pouring one after another, causing you to feel totally overwhelmed and exhausted. It seems to bring more pain instead of relief, and you just wish that the pain would stop. You wish that you have never opened the box, had never become so aware of your emotion and coping mechanism. You might even want to go back to your old self, your old habits, and not deal with all of this. I used to think this way too until I discovered why emotional healing feels so painful and learn what to do about it. The first big thing I realized is resistance. Resistance makes healing so much harder than it needs to be. And we all have this automatic built-in aversion to pain, especially emotional pain. It's so second nature that we might not even be aware of it at all. Have you ever noticed this in yourself when you're crying, whether it's grief from losing someone you love or disappointment because you didn't get what you want? You start to hyperventilate, like, and the more you try to stop it, the harder it hits you. This is a form of resistance. It's very subtle, but it's there. I remember this moment when I was in Bali during a program I attended. One of the participants had to leave to visit his dying brother for the last time. The sadness in the room was so heavy, and I felt so deeply the emotions that I started crying too. And guess what? I noticed that the more I tried to stop the tears, the worse it got. I started hyperventilating and I couldn't control it. But when I finally let go and stop fighting the tears, the crying eventually slowed down and stopped on its own. That's when I realized just how resistant we are to emotion. We are so conditioned to not feel them. Think about it. When someone cries, we are so quick to hand them tissues as if their tears are something that needs to be solved. What if crying is necessary to complete the healing? And when you stop someone from crying, you're actually stopping their emotion from being fully processed. I've cried a lot when I was young, and it was always a huge relief for me. But somehow, when we become adults, we are taught that crying is a sign of weakness. We think that we need to be strong, maintain the stoic image. If you notice adults who are crying, they are always have to hide themselves, they have to cover their face as though there's something wrong with crying. But if you notice children, when they cry, they just go, it's like, it's like a full expression. Like, do you notice that? That, that hiding, that trying to cover yourself is a form of suppression and resistance. And of course, I'm not telling you to cry like a child in public. Like, there is no difference crying in the public and in your own private space when it comes to healing. As long as you allow the emotion to move through you fully, you will have processed it. And you don't know why we are so tired when healing our emotional pain. That's because we are unconsciously resisting our emotions. Every time it comes out, we push it down. And we don't even know we are doing that. The suppression of emotion requires energy. It makes us feel tired. It's not the crying that makes us feel tired. That's something that we need to think of. Letting the emotion surface is natural, it's effortless, just like what children do. It's when we stop ourselves from experiencing the emotion that makes healing so much harder. It's like you want to cry, but you want to stop it. Also, like, I want to cry, I want to stop it. That's where the hyperventilation comes, like up, down, up, down. The emotion comes up and you push it down. The emotion comes up and you push it down. And here I'm just using sadness as an example. This applies to all emotion like anger and frustration too. Now, when you feel angry and you push it aside and just pretend that you're not angry, that is kind of suppression also. Anytime you resist your emotion, it's tiring and this emotional wound will still persist. So how can we do this? How can we process our emotion? We all heard the advice to surrender and embrace all our emotion, but it's not always easy because sometimes we don't even know how subtle our resistance is. For example, when we say that we want to heal our emotional pain right now, what we are really saying deep down is, I don't want to feel this pain. I want it to go away now. That is actually a form of resistance too. And the more we resist, the more it sticks around. Embracing emotion means leaning into your pain with openness. You're running towards it, you're not running away from it. This is the nurturing feminine side we possess. And then we also need presence. Presence is the more grounded masculine side of us. Openness means not judging your emotion or being afraid of them. It means you allow yourself to feel them fully, allow them to move in your body without rejecting those uncomfortable sensations. It means relaxing into your sadness, relaxing into your anger, breathing into this emotion, and letting your body stay open instead of resisting or tightening up your body. Like it could be a very subtle tightening up, which you may not notice if you are not mindful of your body. And the stronger the emotion you're experiencing, the more open and relaxed you need to be. We have to remember that emotions are like passing clouds. They will move on if you let them. If you don't hold on to them or fight them, they will naturally leave your system. You can't cry forever. Think about it. How long can you really cry? Like the longest I've cried, I think was 2 hours straight. And afterward, I just felt tired, dehydrated. But there's a calm and a sense of serenity within me. Like the storm has just passed and the clouds were gone. The second part of embracing your emotion is presence. Presence means being right there for your emotions. It's not about waiting for the pain to end or rushing to a future where you feel better or rushing to save yourself or fix the emotion. The mind always wants things to end quickly or wants the problem to be fixed now. But when you try to rush through your healing process or reject what you're feeling right now, you are resisting the present moment. The mind is always chasing an angle, thinking that when you finally reach the angle, it will be happy, but it never truly get happy. The key is to stay present and embrace whatever you are feeling right now. And if another wave of emotion comes, you deal with it only when it arrives. You don't worry about what's in the future or doubt whether you can handle it. When it comes, it comes. You're just dealing with what is in front of you. When you do that a lot of time, no matter how big the emotional wave is, you will never fear it or let it overwhelm you because you know you can handle it. You have practiced so many times. The second big obstacle to emotional healing is the story we tell ourselves. Our mind loves to create a narrative around our experiences, but this can actually keep us stuck in emotional pain. There are two main parts when it comes to healing. One is processing your emotion, which we already talked about, and two is working on your mind. Why do we want to work on our mind? Because our mind is often the one fueling those emotions by replaying situation and adding meaning to them. Think about it. If you didn't have words to describe your experience, how would you feel? You will just feel the raw emotion, right? But when your mind steps in, it starts creating a story, describing what's happened, why it hurts, justifying the emotion, problem solving, or why that person is to be blamed. These stories keep those feelings alive, playing a loop in our head. For example, I remember one day I was walking down the streets and realized I felt so angry, but I didn't even know why. When I paused and paid attention to my thoughts, I saw my mind keeps bringing up an old incident, replaying it like a broken record. I was feeling my anger without even realizing it. The truth is, If you stop believing those stories your mind keeps telling you, if you stop justifying why you feel a certain way or why that incident is bad, the emotions will eventually fade. What you are left with is just the initial wave of emotion, and that's so much easier to process. On the other hand, if you don't interrupt this pattern, over time, these stories can become belief. For instance, I used to struggle with low self-esteem. Because of a memory I replay over and over, I was part of my class community, but one time I wasn't invited to a meeting. I just stood outside the classroom looking in, feeling unimportant and forgotten. That moment turns into a movie scene in my mind. And every time I felt isolated or overloaded, my mind would play that scene again to remind me how unimportant I am. And that has become a part of my identity. Healing feels so hard because we get trapped in these stories that our egos create. And unless you change how you see the situation, you keep feeling the same emotion every time it comes up. That's why shifting your perspective is so important. I get it that it can be tough to see things differently when we are so close to the situation. But understanding that even if you struggle to do this alone, there is always someone out there with a fresh or higher perspective who can help you see things differently. They are not so immersed in your stories, so they can see the bigger picture. It's about changing your paradigm and tuning into a new frequency. Think of it like a radio. If you keep tuning to a certain station that doesn't serve you, then you will keep getting stuck in the energy. But you can actually choose to switch to a higher frequency, a different channel or different perspective that feels better, help you move forward. The key is to notice the stories your mind is telling and let them go. They are only real if you repeat them enough times until you believe they are. Your mind is not really at fault here. It's just doing its job, trying to make sense of things, trying to problem solve. But you don't have to believe everything that your mind tells you. At the end of the day, your soul, not your mind, is in charge. So you can direct your mind elsewhere. When you stop clinging to stories and just feel your emotion, they naturally rise to higher vibration. That's your true state of being. Healing becomes easier when you let go of your mental chatter and allow yourself to simply just feel and release. And you don't have to change your perspective if you don't want to. Like if you rather hold on to anger or cling to a memory, that's totally your choice too. But just know that it will make healing so much slower and so much harder. You're basically stretching it out unnecessarily. Personally, I'd rather face the pain and emotion head on right from the start instead of dragging it out forever. I get upset once in a while, but most of the time I just feel peaceful and joyful. And emotions aren't as scary as they seem to be. There are many ways to handle them, like stroking your limbs and chest, like to regulate your emotion or nervous system, taking deep, slow breath, doing something comfortable like hugging a soft pillow. It's actually my go-to method for feeling insecure or sad. Yes, sure, emotion can feel uncomfortable, but they will eventually pass. They don't destroy you. This, however, your mind, where it spiral out of control, it start throwing lies, telling negative things about you, and leading you path that might harm you. I've been there, so I know how crazy this mind can be if it spiral out of control. That's why it's so important for you to be mindful of your thoughts. And if you want to learn how to quiet your mind, check out this video next.